The fire and the shadow. The smell of smoke filled the night air as flames tore through the old Torvald house. The windows glowed like burning eyes, and a terrible scream came from inside. A scream that didn't sound fully human. Colton Miller stood in the middle of the street, shaking, the phone trembling in his hand. "There's someone still in there," he shouted to the 911 operator. But even as he spoke, a dark figure appeared in the upstairs window. Tall, thin, and perfectly still. For a moment, Colton thought it was Magnus Torvald, the man he had been watching for weeks. Then the figure turned its head, slowly, almost unnaturally, and smiled. The fire roared louder, swallowing the window in a burst of orange light. Colton dropped the phone and ran toward the house. He had to save Heather before it was too late. That night would become one of the most terrifying in the history of their small town. But it had all started quietly, almost peacefully, just 3 weeks earlier. The old house across the street had been empty for years. Boarded up, falling apart, a place no one wanted. Then one morning, Colton saw a moving truck parked in front. An old man stepped out, tall and pale, wearing a dark coat even though it was summer. He moved slowly, like he didn't belong to this world. Everyone in the neighborhood said the same thing. That house is cursed. But Colton didn't believe in curses. Not then. Over the next few days, Colton noticed strange things. At night, faint blue light flickered in the windows. Sometimes he heard low humming, almost like chanting, coming from inside. One night, when he took the trash out, he saw Magnus standing in his yard, staring up at the sky and whispering words Colton couldn't understand. When Magnus saw him, he turned away and walked back into the house without saying a word. The next morning, a girl appeared. A thin, pale girl about Colton's age. She was hanging laundry in the backyard, her hands trembling. Colton waved, but she didn't wave back. He saw bruises on her wrists. Her name, he would later learn, was Heather, and the fear in her eyes was the first sign that something was very, very wrong in that house. That night, Colton couldn't sleep. He watched from his bedroom window, the camera app open on his phone. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the blue light appeared again. Only this time, it wasn't coming from the window. It was glowing from beneath the ground, like something buried deep under the Torvald house was waking up. And then, just for a second, Colton saw a shadow move behind Magnus in the yard. Something tall, thin, and not human, the whisper in the static. Colton barely slept after what he saw that night. Every time he closed his eyes, the image of that long, shadowy figure behind Magnus came back, the way it moved without making a sound, like smoke in the dark. By morning, he was sure he'd imagined it. Maybe it was just the flicker of light, or the tree swaying in the wind. That's what he told himself, until he checked his phone. The camera had caught everything. The blue glow, the figure, and something else. A faint whispering sound buried in the recording, repeating his name. Colton. His heart pounded. He dropped the phone on the bed, staring at it like it might bite him. After school, he told his best friend Ryan about it. Ryan laughed it off, saying, "Bro, you're watching too many horror movies." But when Colton showed him the video, Ryan stopped smiling. "That's weird," he whispered. "Maybe call the cops?" But Colton shook his head. "They'll never believe me. It's just light and noise on a video." Still, something in Ryan's eyes told him his friend was scared too. Later that day, while taking out the trash, Colton saw Heather again. She was sitting on the porch steps, holding a stuffed rabbit with one ear torn off. He hesitated, then crossed the street. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" She looked up, startled, then quickly shook her head. "You shouldn't talk to me," she whispered. "He doesn't like that." Colton frowned. Who? Magnus? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the house and said, "He says the heat keeps it asleep, but if it wakes up again, we'll burn." Then she stood and ran inside. Colton's stomach twisted. What does she mean? The heat keeps it asleep. That night, he couldn't stop thinking about her words. Around midnight, he checked his cameras again. Everything seemed quiet until the temperature alert on his screen blinked red. His motion sensor read 103 degrees. Then, though the night was cold, then the blue light flickered back on. The camera image shook, static cutting across the feed. And through the grainy screen, Colton saw something climbing up from the basement window. A long black shape with arms too thin to be human, dragging itself into the night. Colton froze, unable to breathe. Then, from the other side of the street, the light in Heather's room went out. The House of Echoes. Colton's chest felt tight as he stared at the dark window across the street. Heather's light had gone out completely, and the camera feed was now just a storm of static. He could still see that faint blue glow flickering beneath the ground, pulsing like a heartbeat. He grabbed his flashlight and ran outside, his bare feet slapping against the pavement. The air felt heavier, hotter, like the middle of summer, though it was barely 50 degrees that night. Every step closer to the Torvald house made his skin prickle, as if the air itself was warning him to turn back. He reached the gate and froze. The door was wide open, not just unlocked, open, swaying slowly in the wind. The old hinges creaked like a groan. "Heather," he whispered, his voice shaking. No answer, only the hum, that low, throbbing sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. He stepped inside. The air was thick and smelled like something burning, though there was no fire. He could hear faint breathing somewhere deeper in the house. When he reached the hallway, he saw pictures lining the wall, old black and white photos. Every one of them showed the same man, Magnus. But in each picture, the date was different. 1952, 1979, 1994, 2008. And in all of them, Magnus looked exactly the same, never older, never younger. Colton's stomach turned cold. Then he heard footsteps, slow, dragging steps coming from the basement. The door at the end of the hall was cracked open, blue light spilling out. He took one step toward it, then another, the floorboards creaking under his weight. As he reached for the door, a whisper came from behind him. "Colton." He spun around. No one there. Just the hallway, empty and still. His heart thudded so hard he thought it might stop. Then the whisper came again, this time from the basement. "Help me." It was Heather's voice. Without thinking, Colton yanked the basement door open and aimed his flashlight down. The stairs were narrow and steep, leading into the flickering blue light below. He took a deep breath and started down. Halfway there, the basement floor groaned like something alive. The light grew brighter, and he heard a soft, wet sound, like something moving in the dark. When his feet reached the bottom step, his flashlight flickered and went out. The blue light pulsed once more, then revealed what was standing in the corner. It wasn't Magnus. It was something wearing his skin. The thing wearing his skin. Colton froze where he stood. The thing in the corner twitched, its limbs bending the wrong way, its skin sagging like it didn't belong to it. The face looked like Magnus Torvald, but only partly. The mouth stretched too wide when it smiled, and the eyes were solid black, reflecting the faint blue light that seemed to come from under its skin. It took a shaky step forward, and Colton could hear the sound of bones cracking with each movement. "You shouldn't be here," it said in a voice that was both Magnus's and something else entirely, something older, deeper. He stumbled back, tripping over a box and hitting the floor. His flashlight rolled away, casting a dim beam across the room. That's when he saw Heather. She was chained to a wooden post, her face pale and wet with tears. "Run!" she screamed. But before Colton could move, the creature tilted its head and whispered, "The heat keeps it sleeping. You let it wake." The room grew hotter instantly, the air thick like it was burning from the inside out. Symbols on the basement walls began to glow, carved deep into the stone. They pulsed in rhythm with the blue light. Colton crawled toward Heather, trying to find a way to break the chain. "What is it?" he gasped. Heather shook her head, crying harder. "It's not him. It's what's been inside him." She pointed at the furnace in the corner. The door was shaking, rattling violently like something was trapped inside trying to get out. A deep growl echoed from it, followed by a sudden blast of heat so strong it burned Colton's arm. The creature laughed, a sound that made the whole basement vibrate. "You think fire kills me?" it hissed. "Fire feeds me." The blue light turned red, and a crack split across the floor, spilling molten heat that licked up the walls. Colton yanked a metal pipe loose from the furnace and swung it at the chain until it broke. Heather stumbled free, grabbing his hand. Together, they ran up the stairs as the creature shrieked behind them. When they reached the hallway, the house was already burning. Flames crawled up the walls like living things. Heather coughed, her voice barely a whisper. "It won't stop. It never stops." Colton pulled her toward the door, but when he looked back, the creature was climbing up the stairs, its body on fire, smiling through melting skin. They burst out into the night as the house exploded behind them, a wave of heat knocking them to the ground. Sirens wailed in the distance. Colton looked up at the fire devouring the Torvald house, thinking it was finally over. But as the flames roared higher, he saw a shape standing in the upstairs window again, tall, still, watching. And this time, it wasn't Magnus. When the flames finally died, the Torvald house was nothing but ash. But the curse didn't end there. Neighbors still whispered about blue lights flickering in the empty lot, and voices calling out at night. Heather never spoke of what she saw in that basement, and Colton moved away, hoping to forget. Yet sometimes, when the heat rises for no reason, people say the curse of Magnus Torvald still burns. Subscribe to this channel for more chilling true horror stories like this one.